finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.
Some local inhabitants take more interest in the race than others, but at the front of the field there was more drama, and those who are convinced the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race has a sting in the tail were once again proved right. Race leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman looked to be in control when disaster struck.
The Motorrad Revo 1 4x4 had picked up a right front wheel puncture and the pair pulled to the side of the track.
With Hutchison and Bergman in the lead by less than half a minute at the designated service area, it was the turning point in the race. Race cars are not the easiest vehicles to get in and out of, and while the Motorrad crew were busy changing the wheel, Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau sailed past the stranded pair into the race lead.
The race had been tipped on its head, with Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau now on track for their second Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race victory on the trot. The Total Porter had run into a brake problem, but the advantage was now firmly with the new race leaders. Although conditions on the final leg would suit the 4x4 Motorrad car, Hutchinson and Bergman now had a mountain to climb.
The Motorrad car had been restored to full health, but hopes of a fourth successive win this season had virtually disappeared. Hutchison and Bergman could only hope that Variawa and Rousseau would have a bout of brain fade, or that the Total Porter would pick up a mechanical problem that would provide the race with yet another twist.
There's no doubt who this fan was supporting, but it was a Donaldson Nissan Navara at the front of the production vehicle category, with Duncan Foss and Rolf Pitchford increasing their advantage over Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton. Foss is a former South African GTI single-seater champion and has also won titles in touring cars. With 3 SA off-road titles also under his belt, he's emerged as one of the most versatile and competent race drivers yet produced in South Africa.
The father and son duo of Nick and Ryan Harper were on track for a podium finish in the Atlas Copco Bat, but were also given a fright when an overshoot ended with contact with a rather substantial tree.
The car stalled, and there were frantic signs from the crew for handily placed spectators to come to the rescue.
I'm touching a sandmaster.
Race enthusiasts popped out of the bush, but it still took a bit of manpower to send the Harpers back on their way.
Oh, really? Did you hear?
No.
You want to play? Push again. Push.
The Harper car had lost a couple of minutes, and that allowed Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson to cut the gap to the Atlas Copco pair to around 6 minutes. But for their day 2 problems in a mud hole, which cost them around 20 minutes, it could have been a totally different story for the Regent Racing pair.
These young fans made it clear where their loyalties lay, with race honours about even between the special vehicles and the production cars. A little overshoot only cost Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton a few seconds, but the Castrol Toyota pair had given up chasing Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford. Their only thought now was to get the Toyota home safely and bag some much-needed championship points.
The RFS Toyota of Christian de Ploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren was running around 12 minutes behind the works car, with a well-deserved podium place up for grabs. It was a marvellous performance from the SP class rookies, who had hardly put a wheel wrong all weekend, and they had nearly half an hour in hand over Gary Bertholdt and Dani Stassen.
Much to the delight of the locals, Atang Makgegenene and Philip Archinal were still running strongly in the top 5 in the special vehicle category. They got stronger as the race progressed, with Gary Bertholdt and Dani Stassen also having a good final day in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux. Bertholdt and Stassen, like Taylor and Houghton, lost wads of day 2 time in mud holes, and but for that, their races could have been completely different.
An electrical problem temporarily put a halt to progress for David and Gary White, but with the demise of Glenn and Rob Gibson, the Ruacon crew were now the sole runners in Class B. The White brothers approached their racing with a huge amount of enthusiasm and were still showing plenty of late race aggression. Behind the Whites, the by now thoroughly battered RFS Toyota of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst was still plugging along, as was the Orange Tree Bat in the hands of Class B leaders Derek de Toy and Ian Pienaar. The pair had by now lost all in-car communication, but they had their system of hand signals down pat.
After a great effort by the Cape crew, it was a matter of survival to the finish.
It's amazing what people will do to get themselves on television. A Mexican wave in the middle of the Botswana bush greeted Class E leaders Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus, who were well on their way to a second successive win. They regained the Class E lead when teammates Dion Venter and Ian Palmer retired and were on the fringe of a top 5 finish. It had been tough going for the 4-cylinder Toyota Hilux, with Labuschagne and Erasmus clinging to a tenuous 2-minute lead over Ivar Tollefsen and Quinn Evans in the Donaldson Nissan Navara. Tollefsen and Evans finished 4th on this year's Dakar Rally, but Tollefsen is adamant that a day on the Toyota Desert Race is as tough as anything the Dakar can throw at you.
Unfortunately, it had turned into a long day for Naheem Mossadji and Mohamed Moltzen in the tyre rack Dimco. Their day had been one of fits and starts, with the pair now running at the back of the special vehicle field. It had also turned into a long day for Hichu and Jaap de Bruin, but they'd made a good recovery in the Michelin XL Toyota Hilux and had managed to get past Terence Marsh and Pieter Groenewald in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara.
Finding and keeping en route is not always as easy on the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race, and with Marsh still acclimatizing to driving an SP class vehicle, it had been a solid performance from the pair. By this time, only 11 production cars out of 28 were still running, and making it to the finish was a feat in itself.
The race had also taken its toll on the Class D entries, and the Mpumalanga-based brothers Johan and Werner Horn were the sole survivors in the Malalan Toyota Land Cruiser. The Cruiser was still sounding more than healthy, and a late burst took the pair to within 26 seconds of the Marsh Groenewald Nissan Navara.
At the tail end of the field, and the last classified finishers, Class E champions Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux brought the RFS Toyota Hilux home to claim valuable championship points.
At the finish at the Game City complex in Gaborone, thousands of enthusiasts lined the route and packed the grandstands as they waited for the first cars, and a huge cheer greeted special vehicle race winners Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the Total Porter. Just 95 seconds behind them were championship leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman in the Motorride Revo 1.
To the winners go the spoils, and as the champagne corks popped for the Total Motorsport pair, Shamir Varayawa revealed one of the race's best-kept secrets.
We drove the whole desert race without rear brakes. This morning we were 4th on the road. We got past Jimmy quite early in the morning, and then we got past Duncan, and then we got past Evan as well. And when we came to the tight sections, you know, the real tight sections, that's where the four-wheel drive plays an important role. Evan got past us then. And after the halfway, we decided, you know, let's just put the pressure on him and see what happens, you know. And he had a puncture. We got past him and we kept it in front all the way. And but it was tight driving the car without brakes, number one, and to try and beat the four-wheel drive in their type of terrain it was hard.
After totally dominating the race following a disappointing prologue, Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford put the finishing touches to the production vehicle victory. After starting 28th on the road, the Donaldson Nissan Navara crew were in the lead at the first DSP, and they never looked back. For Foss, it was his third successive Toyota Desert Race win, and Pitchford grabbed the victory that has eluded him over the last 2 seasons.
We had a great weekend. We battled a bit in the qualifying on Friday.
which meant we started in about 28th position, which was a bit of a problem for us. But yesterday the conditions were perfect for us. They'd had a lot of rain in the area, so there wasn't too much dust. The wind picked up, and we managed to get through the field reasonably well. A lot of people had trouble, but we raced a couple of guys, and we got into the lead. And then today we had to really just focus on the job, not make any mistakes, drive quickly, but knowing that we had a bit of a gap, and we had a great day today.
The final podium place in the special vehicle category went to Steady Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco back. They were followed across the finish line by the Castrol Toyota Hilux work crew of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton. Prologue problems saw them start 44th on the road, and theirs was a performance full of merit.
I must say, coming from 44th to finish where I finished now, second on the day, it's phenomenal. You know, it's not a easy task. It was pretty tough, and yeah, look, I must say the Toyota held out very, very well, and yeah, we didn't have any trouble this last section coming down from the DSP. Look, we'll just have to come back next year and do it fair and square and win it.
A strong recovery after day 2 woes saw Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson bring the Regent Racing bat home in 4th place, with a pair closely followed by Atang Makgagene and Philip Archinol.
An interested spectator at the race was Castrol International's head of sponsorship, and despite having been tipped off about what to expect, Donald Smith gave the race a rave review.
Well, the guys at Castrol have given me a bit of advice about what I was going to expect, but to be honest, when I first got here, it has blown my mind a bit. The scale of the event, the actual professionalism of the organisers and the teams themselves, and finally, I think the spectators that I've seen out there and the enthusiasm of them, and specifically the numbers of spectators, have been very impressive.
Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vuren completed the production car podium, with Gary Berthold happy with 4th place.
Yeah, 4th SP, I think we're happy with the result. We understand it's a developing year for our Atlas Copco Toyota, so we can't expect too much. A very tough event, extremely tedious. We had to be careful out there, but so far so good with the vehicle. Well built, well put together.
The Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race benefited from additional funding by Botswana cellular giant Masscom.
This year we decided to be even stronger with the Toyota Desert Race. It's a very well organized event, the biggest sporting event in Botswana and one of the biggest in Africa. So Masscom, as the leading network in Botswana, needed to be associated with this event.
After a long weekend for the brothers, Class B honours went to a delighted David and Gary White.
Yes, it's been a very long weekend, especially today. The last 200 guys just felt it's not going to ever end. But we just pushed on. We had a problem with the car, the electrical problem. Managed to sort that out. It took about half an hour, but we got it sorted out. And we're just very glad to be here. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Rubicon and Vian and Ram Electrical, for sponsoring us to be able to do this event, and to Peter Ritzman.
A brave effort saw Derek Du Toit and Ian Pienaar win Class B, while the final classification in the production vehicle category saw Foss and Pitchford win by over 43 minutes. Class E winners Labuschagne and Erasmus just missed a top 6 placing, with only 11 cars making it to the end.
Only 95 seconds separated the top 2 in the special vehicle category, where there were only 8 finishes. For the White brothers and Du Toit and Pienaar, class wins were richly deserved.
Toyota missed out on the win, but 8 of the 11 production vehicle finishes were from the Toyota stable.
Well, firstly, from a branding point of view, Toyota is very big in Botswana, and obviously for our dealer here, Satai Dada has been a stalwart in that respect, and obviously we'd like to give him the opportunity to do this, from a marketing angle, and also to show what our vehicles can do in Botswana, because this is obviously one of the places that's still, quite wild and, difficult type of roads. But as you said, we've got 4 cars in the top 5. We've got a lot of Hiluxes. I mean, you can see them behind me. So with the class wins and everything else, I think we did pretty well.
Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford are solidly in control of the Production Vehicle Championship, with Chris Viss and Japie Badenhorst moving into the top 3. Class E crew Pikkie Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus also break into the top 10.
Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman dominated the special vehicle category standings, with some tight battles developing behind them. 2 Class P crews also make it into the top 10.
Next on the ABSA Off-Road Championship calendar is the popular Sun City 400 at the world-renowned Sun City Resort in the Pilanesberg.
The race takes place on July 24 and 25, and don't miss highlights right here on Supersport, your world of champions.
That was the ultimate tech.